Benjamin Netanyahu, Viktor Orban, Nigel Farage, the 21st century has been resplendent with right-wingers, a trend which looks set to continue as Argentina just elected a pro-Israeli promoter of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories who believes that the scientific consensus around climate change is a socialist hoax. And not to be outdone, 23% of the Dutch electorate just voted for this guy. That is all well and good, I hear you say. I have been looking forward to the apocalypse, but which right-wingers have defined the world of football during the 21st century? This time, I'm not referring to Josip Simunic, Frank Lampard, or everyone's favourite fascist Paolo Di Canio though, or players of any political bent to be perfectly honest. Just those who happen to play on the right wing. What's that? You already assumed that was the case when you clicked on the video, and this whole introduction up to this point was entirely pointless. Oh well, never mind. This is the 8th video of this series, following the best goalkeepers, right-backs, centre-backs, left-backs, defensive midfielders, central midfielders, and, you guessed it, attacking midfielders. And I would of course arrogantly recommend binging all of those if you haven't yet seen them, but this one is among the most competitive yet. As with the midfielders, it can sometimes be difficult to categorise players into an individual position for the purpose of this series, if they can play on the left, right, or through the middle, as is becoming increasingly common in the modern game. Christian Pulisic, for example, has played almost an equal number of games on the left and the right flanks, plus a further 80 through the middle. Thankfully, the LeBron James of soccer doesn't have the requisite quantity of quality appearances to feature, so I dodged that particular headache. But that is just a heads up that some of the players you might expect to feature might be in the left wing video instead, if they have actually played more games on the left flank. As I alluded to there, and as always in this series, the quality and quantity of a player's performances since 2000, with equal weighting, are the only considerations. That is bad news for someone like Steve McManaman, who was excellent at the start of the 2000s but retired in 2005, and therefore doesn't have the quantity of high-quality appearances under his belt required to feature, or Bukayo Saka, who hasn't yet played enough games for the opposite reason, aged only 22, or indeed, even someone like former Watford man Nordin Amrabat, who has played loads of games, all since 2000, but is just nowhere near good enough to feature. Soz Nordin. Hopefully that's all clear enough, so without further ado, who played predominantly through the middle and therefore couldn't even be considered, here are the 7 greatest right wingers of the 21st century, all of whom you will definitely agree with, and there will be absolutely zero arguments in the comments. 7th, Luis Figo. The oldest player in this 7, Luis Figo has among the shortest post-2000 careers of anyone to have featured in this series so far, and that is a testament to the level of his performances during that time. Figo's career was split, almost to the match in fact, 50-50 between the 1990s and the 2000s, and he was at his absolute best right at the turn of the millennium. Clearly destined to be a superstar right from his early days with Sporting, Figo was inspired at Barcelona, and he deservedly won the Ballon d'Or in 2000, ahead of the likes of Thierry Henry, Andrei Shevchenko, and soon-to-be Real Madrid teammate Zinedine Zidane. It was a tight call in 7th, to be perfectly honest, between Figo and another of his future Real Madrid teammates, David Beckham. I honestly think that it has got to the point where Beckham is severely underrated now, and he didn't retire until 2013, 4 years after Figo. Whereas Beckham joined LA Galaxy in 2007 though, Figo played, and indeed starred at the highest level, right until the very end. Also, as good and as underrated as Beckham is, Figo was still better than him in probably every aspect of his game aside from crossing, set pieces and stamina, all of which are areas where Figo still excelled. Beckham was just in a class of his own. A brilliant dribbler with a first-class football brain, which really came to the fore in his last 4 years, playing for Inter Milan, where Figo played predominantly in a more central role. A younger audience might be tempted to look at Figo's goal-scoring record and question his inclusion in this 7. In total, Figo scored 169 goals at club and international level, which is fewer than the likes of Pedro or Raheem Sterling. In an era of 4-4-2s though, where wingers were often referred to as wide midfielders, that was actually an outstanding record. And more importantly still, scoring goals wasn't Figo's primary role. He was there to link up the play, beat players, and create, and at that, there have been few better in any era. The only players with more La Liga assists than Figo are Messi and Xavi, both of whom spent far longer and played many more games in Spain's top flight. His age, lack of appearances post-2000, and retirement in 2009, they are all pretty much the same thing actually, prevent him from featuring higher, despite being arguably the second most talented player in this seven, but Figo deservedly gets us started regardless. 6th, Alexis Sanchez. Speaking of players who have started to become increasingly underrated in recent years, though Alexis Sanchez and David Beckham don't have a great deal in common, I think that might be one similarity. The fact that Sanchez's move to Manchester United went so badly wrong after the Red Devils made him by far the highest paid player in the division, and he has never reached his former heights since that setback, seems to have coloured a lot of people's perceptions of the Chilean. It is almost as though the fact that Sanchez was arguably the best player in the Premier League for the 3.5 years up to that point, and certainly among the top 3, hence why Manchester United were willing to make him the league's highest earner, just sort of gets forgotten. Well, not on this channel. Alexis, I am here to give you your dues, which probably means more to you than the £500,000 a week that you were paid for being not very good at Manchester United. What was so strange about Sanchez's time at Old Trafford was that he lacked any kind of a spark, aggression, or ingenuity, the three things that had made him so great up to that point. Fast, agile, brilliant on the ball and deadly in the final third, Sanchez made his first team debut at the age of only 16, and by 19, he was already starring in Europe for Udinese. A move to Barcelona followed, then the best team in Europe, where Sanchez made 83 goal contributions in only 141 appearances, winning 6 trophies in 3 seasons. It was only the arrival of Neymar that rendered Sanchez surplus to requirements at the Camp Nou, and for the next 3.5 years, he just about managed to keep Arsenal relevant. Now aged 34, and back playing for Inter Milan, following an impressive season at Marseille, because of how young he started, Sanchez has already played an incredible 916 games. Some 160 of those have come for Chile at international level, who Sanchez inspired to both the 2015 and the 2016 Copa America. All things considered, it would be madness if he didn't feature. 5th, Angel Di Maria. This seems harsh on Angel Di Maria, but it's only due to the genius of the 4 men up next. Oddly, Di Maria and Sanchez also have one thing in common, and that is that they are sometimes underrated by virtue of their disappointing spells at Manchester United. The reality, however, for the last decade, is that almost everyone is rubbish at Manchester United, so that's not really any way of judging a player. What's more, much as that may be the perception, and his time at Manchester United, the least successful of his career, Di Maria wasn't actually rubbish at all at Old Trafford. In 32 appearances, he scored 4 goals and made 12 assists, while playing in 6 different positions. Cesc Fabregas and Santi Cazorla were the only players with more assists in the Premier League that season. In happier times, Di Maria made his name at Rosario Central, then in Europe with Benfica. He won it all at Real Madrid and PSG, and now he is back at Benfica at 35. Quick, skillful, incredibly hard-working and creative, Di Maria illustrated the range to his game when he enjoyed one of his best ever seasons at Real Madrid, as they won the Champions League in his final season in the Spanish capital. That summer, Di Maria was also Argentina's second most important player as they reached the final of the World Cup, and I thought that he was a little bit hard done by to only finish 10th in Ballon d'Or voting. In total, Di Maria has made a whopping 874 appearances, almost exclusively at the very highest level, exhibiting freakish consistency throughout that time, and he shows few signs of letting up now, age 35, having made 9 goal contributions in his first 14 games back at Benfica. 4th, Arjen Robben. The ultimate modern-day wide man, Arjen Robben was a left-footed right winger who was quick, brilliant on the ball, loved to cut inside, and rifle the ball into the far corner of the goal. That was his trademark. Everyone knew that he wanted to do it pretty much every time he received the ball, but for 20 years, still no one learnt how to stop him. Almost impossible to defend against in one-on-one situations, most teams would double up on Robben, which in turn would create room for the likes of Franck Ribéry and Thomas Muller to cause havoc. Throughout his career, Robben scored 209 goals and made 165 assists at club level, and he scored a further 37 goals from 96 caps for the Netherlands, with whom he reached the World Cup final in 2010 as one of the best players at the tournament. If there is one thing that holds Robben back from the podium places in this seven, aside from, all of the diving and the fact that there is still a warrant out for his arrest in Mexico on account of having robbed an entire nation, it is the persistent injury problems that he had from the age of about 26 onwards. Robben suffered a fairly remarkable 58 separate injuries, which caused him to miss at least one game, sidelining him for a grand total of more than 4 years and causing him to miss almost 250 matches. That is almost a third of his entire career, and it means that Robben only played 614 games at club level. Nonetheless, those 614 were of a high enough calibre to earn him a spot in fourth. Third, Gareth Bale. At his peak, I think that Gareth Bale was a better footballer than the man up next, but as with Robben, injuries were the bane of Bale's life. Lightning quick and electric to watch, Tottenham tried to offload Bale not long after signing him from Southampton because he was a left-back who couldn't defend. Bale didn't want to leave though, and Spurs would soon be eternally grateful for his stubbornness. Once Harry Redknapp moved him further forward, the Welshman became an absolute animal. His 2012-13 season, which was his last at White Hart Lane, I would maintain is still one of the single greatest individual seasons that a player has ever had in the Premier League. Bale made 40 goal contributions in 44 games that season in a Spurs team that finished 5th, largely because of him. Over the course of his career as a whole, Bale scored 186 goals and made 137 assists in 554 appearances at club level, as well as becoming Wales's all-time record appearance holder and goalscorer with 41 goals from 111 caps. From the age of 30, Bale was absolutely ravaged by injuries, and his relationship with Real Madrid fans went from a little bit frosty to outright sour. At his best, however, he was one of the best players in the world, and probably one of only 2 or 3 players, along with Neymar and Luis Suarez maybe, around a decade ago, who ever looked like they could even entertain the idea of threatening the duopoly of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Bale would never quite reach those heights and had nowhere near the longevity of those two, but he had 9 seasons in which he was absolutely outstanding, and he scored a raft of enormous goals in massive moments at both club and international level. Second, Mohamed Salah. I don't think that Mohamed Salah is as good at football as Gareth Bale was, but among the most important abilities in football is availability, and there, the Egyptian wipes the floor with the real Prince of Wales. Though 3 years younger than Bale, and still starring at the highest level now, whilst Bale has already retired, Salah already has made more appearances. Not unlike Bale, it took Salah a little bit of time to get going after joining one of the Premier League's rich 6. In fact, Salah never got going at his first Premier League club, Chelsea, who signed him after he had twice punished them for Basel. A single season in Serie A with Roma, following a loan spell at Fiorentina, was all it took to earn Salah a Premier League return though, as Liverpool signed him for a potential £43 million in the summer of 2017. At the time, there were some who questioned whether Liverpool might have overspent. More than 6 years on, it looks like one of the bargains of the century. Relentless, rapid, and overflowing with self-belief, it's not just that Salah rarely misses a game, he is freakishly consistent and productive in the final third. In his first season at Anfield, Salah scored 44 goals, which is practically unheard of in English football during the 21st century, or at least it was until the Norwegian meat shield came along. Salah's total of 275 goals and 136 assists from 573 appearances at club level, combined with his 55 goals from 95 caps for Egypt, cannot be overlooked. He is a special player, and given that he's also the youngest player in this 7, his spot in second is fairly remarkable. In fact, at the age of only 31, if it wasn't for who the man up next is, I would say that he had a decent chance of one day taking top spot. 0. Honourable mentions. I had a long shortlist for this one, but I'll try to make it brief. The players who came closest to featuring were David Beckham, Riyad Mahrez, Raheem Sterling, and most notably of all, I would say, actually Pedro. The Spaniard wasn't or isn't as gifted as some of the other honourable mentions, or any of the 7 themselves, but when you look at the number of games that he played, along with his consistency and productivity, he can probably consider himself a little bit unfortunate to miss out to Figo, even if there is absolutely zero comparison in terms of their peaks or talent. Other honourable mentions go to the likes of Freddie Ljungberg, Jakub Błaszczykowski, Antonio Valencia, Theo Walcott, Jesus Navas, Lucas Moura, Mauro Camoranesi, Luis Garcia, Domenico Berardi, Joaquin, and Ricardo Quaresma. That is it for the honourable mentions, but there is still time for perhaps the most predictable top spot in the history of HITC Sevens. First, Lionel Messi. The only way that you wouldn't know Lionel Messi was going to top this 7 is if you weren't quite sure whether he played more games on the right or through the middle. I suppose I have just answered that question if you were unsure, though it is fairly close. Messi made just over 50% of his club appearances on the right flank, compared to about 44% as a second striker or centre forward. He would have topped whichever 7 he had been put in, obviously, and though it feels somewhat needless, I will just very quickly justify that decision. Age 36, and now starring for Inter Miami in Major League Soccer, 1 year on from finally getting his hands on the World Cup, Messi has scored a career total of 821 goals and has made 361 assists in 1,047 senior career appearances. In other words, Messi has made more goal contributions than any other player in this 7 has made appearances, and he is still playing. And he has also scored more goals, forgetting even assists, than his closest competitors, namely Bale, Salah and Robinho, have made total appearances as well. Beyond the numbers, Messi is the best dribbler, passer of a ball, and goal scorer of my lifetime, and the best when it comes to combining all 3, I would argue, in the entire history of the sport. I won't reel off his accolades because we would be here all week. Besides, you can throw your 8 Ballon d'Ors in the biggest bin you can find now, Lionel. The real prizes come in. Alfie from HITC Sevens has just named you as the greatest right winger of the 21st century. Well, that is it for today's video, which both started and ended with 2 very different Argentines. Funnily enough, according to a poll last December, if Messi had stood for president in Argentina, he would have won by a landslide, as first preference with 36.7% of voters. Javier Milei, who actually won the election, would have been reduced to second place with a paltry 12%. So, if you really think about it, Messi has effectively facilitated the far right coming to power in Argentina, all because he'd rather kick a ball about in Miami than lead a country of 46 million people. I mean, pull your finger out, Lionel. The world's at stake. You've completed football. That is it for today's video, but thank you all very much, as ever, for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and of course make sure you're subscribed. And have notifications turned on for both this channel and also my second channel, Alfie Potsama, both of which should be on or about to appear on your screens now, along with a couple of videos that you might enjoy watching after this one. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram or Threads via the username @HITC Sevens on all 3, and all of those links plus a whole lot more, should you be interested, should be down in the video description below. Cheers.